Hey, everybody, this is Dr. William Clark, your host of the Dr. William Clark podcast. Glad to be with you all today. Wanted to welcome you into the podcast and just tell you thank you. Thank you for logging on, subscribing, watching, clicking, liking, sharing this podcast and the previous podcast episodes. It's our desire to provide great content for you, particularly if you are looking for content around nonprofit strategy, nonprofit leadership, and nonprofit fundraising. As you engage in this particular podcast, I'm going to ask that you take a moment to not only take notes as we get started, but also take a moment to share this particular podcast episode with someone in your life who you believe can benefit from this. This can be a colleague, this can be a friend, this can be a partner, it can be a stakeholder, anyone you think can benefit from good content around nonprofit stuff. With that being said, guys, let's go ahead and get into our show, and I'll see you guys on the other side. All right, folks, let's go ahead and jump into our conversation today. I want to share a few thoughts around how to connect with your funders. Now, many of you are in different stages and places in the life cycle of your organization, and some of you are in different places and stages of your own development as a leader of a nonprofit organization. And it's important for you to understand how to connect with your funder. Now, your funder is going to be diverse from a lot of perspectives. So, for example, your funder may be from, let's say, your large foundation, large community foundation. Your funder may be the small organization that is funding work through the holdings of a bank. You may have a funder that may be an individual donor or sponsor or a group that decides to support you for whatever reason. And at the end of the day, regardless of who your funder is, you got to figure out how to connect with the funder. Now, the points I'm going to share today really is kind of categorized for the more mature organizations that have large scale funders in place. This isn't to exclude the small organizations or the organizations that are new, but it does speak to kind of an advanced perspective of how to work with funders, how to connect with them, how to have an ongoing relationship with them. Also, we're going to be focusing these points on the foundations, the large foundations. Now, these points in totality, they may not apply to the smaller funder, but I will tell you that when we talk about funders in general, I just want you to understand that your funder is very, very intelligent. Whether it's from the large foundation, the mid-sized foundation, or the small mom and pop foundation. Even with the small mom and pop foundation, a lot of their funds are facilitated by very smart people that have been doing this work for quite a long time, and they are aware of how this works, whatever this is. And the this that I'm referring to speaks to your organization, the work, the industry that you're focused on. So I want you to not lose sight of that. But I do want you to understand that we're going to be focusing on the large scale funder when we share these points. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into our points. Then we're going to field any questions that you may have. As we're giving these points, feel free to come up to the stage. If you're on Clubhouse, on Facebook, if you're there, leave a comment. And then on Zoom, of course, just come off mute and you can share your question or reflection. So how do you connect with your funder? Number one, you have to know your customer. Now, the customer we're referring to in this particular situation is not the funder. While the funder is a form of a customer and certainly represents one of the most important customers you have when leading a nonprofit organization. But what I'm speaking to in this scenario and in this situation is the customer that you're serving day to day within a nonprofit organization. These are the folks that are coming to your organization for services, who are looking to you for leadership as they go through their transition. Now, as you may have heard from previous lectures, previous talks, the largest amount of nonprofit organization types that exist within our industry are human-centered, human service. And of course, from a revenue standpoint, the health side of nonprofits is the biggest. But when you kind of boil it down in terms of what they do and who they do their work for, they do it for other humans. They do it for other people in their community. And that, by and large, a lot of us are serving other people within our community. If you don't know your customer, if you don't know your customer's behavior, their psychology, and how they approach life, or what they're struggling with, or how they're navigating life, then it puts you in a bad situation with your funder. And it's super important for you to know this information. This information, knowing information about your customer, will help you do a better job as an organization, providing direct services to the customer, but also it lets the funder know that you know what you're doing. Now, why does this matter? This matters because it goes back to my previous point. And my previous point was your funders are smart. Your funders have been in the industry for quite some time. Many people don't realize that most funders have, in their previous life may have been providers, meaning they may have been in your situation. They may have been an evaluator. They may have been a researcher. They may have been a professor. They may have been a person with direct experience, so on and so on and so on. And so it's more likely that the funder you're dealing with, the portfolio officer, or the person who's making the decision within the foundation has had some sort of experience doing what you're doing. And what that means is when they're reading your application and they're going through everything that you're proposing from a work perspective, they're not reading it to find out if you are a great grant writer or if you've hired a great grant writer. They're going through this information. They're going through your grant packet to determine if you can represent capacity to actually do the work that they know is required to serve our community. So this is part of the reason why you want to know your customer. It matters to your funder, but it also matters to your work. Secondly, if you want to connect with your funder, you have to know your industry or the work that you're involved in. So if you're in youth mentoring, which is a very general term and generally not a fundable piece of work, but let's say you're in youth development and you're specializing in workforce development for youth, or crime prevention for youth, or family planning for youth, or education encouragement for youth, whatever the case may be, things that are fundable, you want to make sure you know the work. You want to know the industry. What are the key terms that are used by others in this industry? So if you're of the mindset that it's just me and we're the only ones doing the work and we're the best at it, and you're not aware of what your competitors, what your frenemies, and what your friends are doing and how they are defining terms, you're missing out. If you're not aware how funders are viewing the work, how they are approaching the work, and how they are defining the work and defining the terms of the industry, you're missing out. These are telltale signs of whether or not you know the industry. So it becomes super, super important for you to understand the work specifically, what's required to get the job done from point A to point B, and what's the terminology that appropriately reflects your knowledge of the industry that you're in, so that as you compete on another level for funding opportunities and you're looking to establish first time or a long time relationship with funders, they can rely on you because they know that you know this work. With that being said, guys, we got one more point to introduce to you. While we're doing so, I'm going to invite you guys to come up to the stage to ask your question, or you can leave your question in the back channel here on Clubhouse, or you can come off mute here on Zoom and or leave your comment here on Facebook. But before we do that, let's quickly reset the room. Then we'll come back and we'll leave our final point, and then we'll introduce you guys to come up to share your reflections or questions. Hey, everybody, this is Dr. William Clark, your host of the Nonprofit Funding Tips Club, and I'm glad to have you in the house with us today. And I'm glad to continue our conversations. In this club, we talk about nonprofit fundraising, and our goal is to simplify fundraising strategies for nonprofit organizations without chasing funders. And I'm super excited to have that conversation with you today. As you guys enter into the room, and as you stay longer and engage in the content, a couple of housekeeping rules. Number one, if you want to have a conversation with me while the teaching is going on, go ahead and tap my profile and then tap the paper airplane to send me a message through the back channel here in Clubhouse. If you prefer to chat with me via Instagram, tap my profile again, scroll to the bottom, tap on my Instagram link there, and send me a direct message there, and I'll be glad to communicate with you through either mechanism. If you have a question while the teaching is going on, please raise your hand and let me know that you want to come to the stage, ask a question, and or engage in a conversation about your nonprofit and your fundraising goals. Lastly, if you want to schedule a free consultation with me, those consultations are free. All you got to do is go to DrWilliamPClark.com. Again, it's DrWilliamPClark.com. Click on schedule a free consultation.
Select a date, a time, and fill out the survey, and we will meet on the date and time that you select. I'm super excited to have you guys in the room, super excited to continue our conversation around nonprofit fundraising and everything involved with that. With that being said, let's get back to our teaching.
All right, guys, welcome back. So we're in the middle of talking about how to communicate or how to connect rather with your funder. Number one, we shared that you got to know your customer. We're talking about the people you're serving in your community. Who are they? What's their behavior? What's their psychology? What are their preferences, etc. Number two, you have to know the industry that you're in. You got to know the terminology. You got to know what moves the needle. How do you communicate expertise to others who are in the industry and others who are funding your work? And lastly, number three, how to connect with the funders. You have to know your numbers. The numbers are critical. Now, I know that you may be inundated with a lot of things, particularly if you're launching a nonprofit or if you're just busy running it day to day, but it's important for you to know your numbers and at least know where to get those numbers so that you can make a direct connection between what the funder may be asking for and what you're able to provide from a capacity and skill perspective and what you can demonstrate from your working knowledge. The numbers tell a story. So for example, if you're doing youth workforce development, you may need to know where are the youth, where are they concentrated within the urban clusters of your city? How many youth are unemployed? How many youth are barely graduating from high school? How many youth are enrolling into secondary education, whether it's a 4-year, 2-year college institution or a trade school versus not? How many youth are going directly from high school to work? How many youth are graduating from high school or getting a GED? How many youth are leaving high school or a GED and then transitioning into creating a family unit, right? So these things are critical for you to know. Now, this is not information you can just quickly grab onto. This is information you kind of gather over time. Yes, you do some research, but you also gather this information by way of connecting with other providers and with other funders. So really quick, how to connect with your funders: know your customer. Number two, know your industry. Number three, know your numbers. With that being said, guys, come on up to the stage. If you have a question, come on, raise your hand, leave a question or chat in the comment. If you're on Zoom, feel free to come on camera or come off mute. And if you're on Facebook, please go ahead and leave a comment. All right, looks like we got one question here. This person says, what if I don't know any of this information? What do I do? So I think we addressed this in the previous point, right? Because a lot of people who are moving into their space or at least becoming experts or learning to become experts through and with their nonprofit organization, they're going to be inundated with new information, new discoveries, etc. And the question that they have to answer is, how do we come up to speed and how do we create space for our organization to grow and to serve and to compete for dollars? Well, it comes down to obviously doing the research, but that's not enough. It's going to come down to understanding what others are doing, competitors, frenemies, and partners. But then also, I'm going to encourage you as a way to come up to speed faster and to get connected to knowing your numbers, knowing your industry, knowing your customer, is figuring out how to partner with other organizations who are doing similar work so that you can tag team on a grant and you can serve as a sub. This does a couple of things. One, it helps you reach some of your fundraising goals, which is another topic, but it also helps you become exposed to how others are doing the work and how industry leaders are doing the work real time, which puts into perspective how funders are thinking about this work and why funders support certain organizations over others. And what are the winning components of a grant proposal that are beyond what's on paper that substantiates earning a grant award. So I hope that answers your question. Looks like we ran out of questions here, but I'm going to encourage you guys to kind of replay this. This is going to be replayable in Clubhouse. You can access this on a podcast as well as on social media, but replay this. And as you're building your plan for 2022 and trying to think through the various ways to build your organization, to raise money and to hit your goals, it's going to come down to that connection with your funder. This is good information that lives beyond 2022, but it's information you want to make sure you include in your core 4 strategies. What are those? Your strategic plan, your fundraising plan, your master grant application, and your budget. It all ties together. This is Dr. Clark for the Dr. William Clark podcast. Guys, we'll see you guys in the next episode. See you, everybody. All right, everybody. This is Dr. William Clark again. Thanks for hanging out with us with this during this particular podcast, and I hope that you got some value out of this particular podcast. Now, I want to make sure that we also close this podcast with some additional value. Now, we've created the Nonprofit Fundraising Masterclass. This particular masterclass was designed by nonprofit leaders for nonprofit leaders to help you simplify your fundraising approaches without chasing funders. Now, if this is something that you want to engage in and utilize for your nonprofit organization, if you have been thinking about how to fundraise for your organization, you just don't know how to do it, if you're transitioning from one phase of fundraising to the next, or you're just trying to improve the fundraising capacity of your organization, then this particular masterclass may be the right fit for you. So if you want to submit your application and join our next cohort, then go to nonprofitfundingstrategies.com. Again, that's nonprofitfundingstrategies.com. For all others who want to just get on my calendar and chat a little bit about your nonprofit organization, we offer free consultations. So you can simply go to DrWilliamPClark.com to schedule your free consultation. Again, that's DrWilliamPClark.com for your free consultation. Guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this particular episode, and we'll see you guys next time. See you, everybody.